Like the biggest thing that I kind of preach and the biggest thing I believe in is you're only as strong as your team. Real estate's a team sport. If you try to do this on your own, you're going to have teams out there competing against you, and it's going to be really hard. So kind of figure out what your strength is, find other people that balance the strength, ask for help, bring in other people. And the faster you can kind of adjust to that and realize that like you don't have to do this on your own, the easier it becomes, right? Learn how to work with other people. If your strength is finding the deal or raising the money or operations, find someone that does something else.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Go Big Live Real Estate Investors Podcast Show. I am your host, Matt Drouin. I am insanely psyched out of my mind today to have a special guest on, Mr. Jonathan Bombaci. Jonathan is a full-time real estate sales professional, achieved financial independence, has a team of 35-plus investor-focused agents, a property management company, construction management company, and a large-scale investment syndication business, owning over 550 units across 3 states. And I'm going to let Jonathan tell more of his story, but welcome on the show, Jonathan. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matt. Looking forward to being here. Looking forward to getting, grilled with questions.
Nice. All right. So my first question is, you were born and now you're here. What happened in between?
But not much. Yeah, very, very boring, actually. No, so I mean, I grew up in Connecticut, middle income family. Did the suburb thing right outside of Hartford, Connecticut. Went to college, got a degree in finance, got out of school, went to buy my first property, and realized I had too much debt. It was kind of funny because I had a finance degree, I knew everything about finance, and I couldn't get a loan. Had a great job, was paying $50,000 a year back in 2010. It was you had the American dream, but couldn't actually afford to buy anything. And so I talked to a bank, and I could buy a really crappy condo, or it came to my attention that I could buy a 3-family where the rental income would essentially make it so I qualify for the loan. My grandmother was a small-time landlord. She encouraged me, buy the 3-family, live in it, do all these types of things. So I did, and the only reason why I bought it was because the bank said I could buy it, and I could, and it was nicer than the crappy condos I was looking at. 5 years later, all my debt is gone. My coworkers, great job, Fortune 100 company, are still kind of struggling paying off student loans, still kind of struggling, paying the bar bills, those types of things. And I was good. And that's when I realized I'd been living in this 3-family for free for 5 years. And I was like, holy shit, I invented something. And then a quick Google search said like, oh, nope, you're an idiot. People do this forever. But again, I was a finance guy, so I knew everything. But this was like a new thing that I had never heard of. And so I kind of like unintentionally house hacked. When I moved to Massachusetts, we bought a 2-family because I didn't want to go from paying none of my income to all of my income. That was a kind of a smart move. And then something tragic happened, right? Because there's always that story. I was working corporate finance, doing the thing, climbing the ladder, reading about financial independence, reading about Mr. Money Mustache, early retirement stream, like listening to Bigger Pockets all day, every day. Like I was living in education without actually doing anything. And my father passed away at 56 years old. And he had cancer for 4 years. He fought it. He outlived the projections. But the thing that kind of resonated with me is, and it was kind of scary, is he got diagnosed. They gave him 6 months to live. 9 months later, he went back to work at GE. And the reason was because he identified with his job, like sitting, watching TV, watching soap operas. There's only so much time you can do. People need to be useful. People need to have impact. People need to have value. And like that connected with me after he passed was like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to work for a Fortune 100 company, be given a death sentence and go back to work. And so that kind of lit a fire under my butt to kind of figure things out. I looked at my financials critically, realized I had this real estate thing going. We bought 24 units in 18 months in northern New Hampshire. I got behind the curtain. I went in and gave my boss my 2 weeks notice the day we closed on one of the 12 units. If they asked me what I was doing, I explained it to them. I forget how I explained it. They're like, okay, well, today's going to be your last day. And then that was July 2019. And that's when I left the corporate world. I've been doing real estate full time for 5 years now, but it was like one of those things where it wasn't intentional. I kind of got into it and then kind of had a life event thrown at me. And my reaction was to scale aggressively in real estate to try to get out of being stuck, I guess.
That is a story I can absolutely relate to. I mean, both my parents, I lost them both early on in my life. And one of the things that seeing my mom, she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. She battled it for 10 years. And as she was going through chemotherapy and radiation, was working as a dialysis nurse, like feeling worse than the patients she was treating. And I remember one thing, it wasn't just because she had a really, really good work ethic. It was also because she had to. And that was one of those wake-up calls for me. And like, the universe, God slapped me in the face several times, reminding me that tomorrow was not promised. Today is not even promised. So you better get after it because, your twilight's going to come eventually. And unfortunately, we're not in control over that. So this is kind of a common story. I mean, we had Rich Fetke on the podcast back a while ago, and he said that, I got diagnosed with cancer and we got into real estate because of that, right? Because my wife, we wanted to create an additional stream of income when I was gone and that sort of thing. He, fortunately ended up living and surviving. But for those people that are out there that don't have these traumatic life experiences, I mean, what can they do to synthetically create some type of urgency that was instilled in you because of those experiences?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I don't know if I have the right answer. I'd say the reason why I was kind of able to react as quickly as I did was because I was educating, I was learning, I had analysis paralysis, I was afraid to do something. But I was prepared. I was saving money. I was maxing out with 401ks. Like I was doing everything we were supposed to do. And then I had that traumatic event, which caused me to take action. I would say that the best thing, and I do this with agents all the time. Actually, I did this with an agent the other day, where we bring in part-time agents. They learn real estate. They start investing. Everyone on my team has to own investment properties. Everyone on my team has to have the goal of being full-time real estate, full-time investor. And it takes time. They have to set it up. They have to prove it. They have to grow their income to the point that it outpaces their current salary, and then they're ready to make a decision. Like I think part of it would be, start working now towards what you want to be, and then that way, if you have a traumatic event, if you meditate on it and you find the passion, you find the fire, you meet the mentor, you're ready to act. The worst thing you can do is say like, hey, I'm not going to do anything until I have the passion, because now you might not have the ability. I'd say start preparing for it. And then when you're ready, you're going to know, but no one's going to be able to convince you to do it until you're ready to do it. And that's the same thing I do with the agents, where it's like when you're ready, you're going to know. And when you do it, you're going to realize you should have done it a year ago. But like you have to make that decision for yourself, because if someone tells you to do it, either you're going to reject it or you're going to make a mistake. The only one that's going to know is going to be yourself.
Absolutely. That's amazing advice. So we were talking about a case study we wanted to pull on today for today's show. And I think we found one when we were talking in the green room. So tell me about this opportunity. It was a deal that was on the MLS, which is like the not the commercial trash bin. That's like LoopNet and Crexy, but the trash bin for real estate deals, right? So like, tell me about, how this deal came about and the origin of it and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so this was 2020. So I'd only been full-time real estate for a little while. We had 29-ish units. I was a real estate agent helping investors. A deal hit MLS in a market that we know very well, Fitchburg, Massachusetts. And the first thing that we saw was it was a 4-family in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, where things were trading under $100,000 a unit, and it was listed at $1.7 million. And when you dig into it and when you looked at it, it wasn't a 4-unit. What it was about, I'm looking at the math right now, but it was 10 properties that made up a total of 23 units. But they listed it as a 4-unit because, I don't know, the broker thought that was the way that they're going to attract people to it. And so instantly we kind of noticed it because it popped up, broke all of the parameters that we had set for that market. And then when we dug into it, we realized like, hey, like there's a lot of buildings here. The cash flow sucked, but we said we were going to go look at it because it was a big opportunity in the market. A lot of the other investors are going to be there. We kind of wanted to see who was operating in the market. And so it was just like, I think it was a poorly advertised deal on MLS that we came across, realized that there was, something worth understanding, worth knowing our market. And so we decided to go to the showing with no real intention of buying it, but more to kind of check out what was going on.
Yeah, that's the one thing with it's a little bit restricted with the MLS because people's search criteria is so rigid And because it's like, I'm going to look at anything that's a 2 through 4 family. And then if I look at it and there's some insane price on it, I'm just going to ignore it. And I think that there's like a market inefficiency that's created through kind of like mistakes that are made in the MLS, poor marketing in the MLS, and also some things where just like there's some of these properties that just don't fit in the box. And so there's not even a possible way to put it in the MLS where it's going to reflect like some searchability, that sort of thing. So I bought properties on the MLS, off the MLS, every single channel you can possibly think of, because I'm so location specific that if a deal is, whether it's on the market or not, I'm interested as long as it's in the location I want to be in.
No, that's the thing about MLS is I kind of look at it back to the corporate days where I was in IT finance, and it's like we had the saying, crap in is crap out, right? So if you put bad stuff in, you get bad stuff out. And the thing we would always struggle with data entry is the data was only as good as the person putting it in. Well, in Massachusetts, we have 50,000 agents entering the data. So how good do you think the data is, right? And so like a lot of times opportunity is in the way someone enters something. They enter something as a 5 unit with a, hey, it's really a legal 4 unit, but it's a 5 unit because there's an extra unit. And I actually know in most markets, a 4 unit with a bonus unit is worth a heck of a lot more than a 5 unit with an illegal unit. But like an agent that doesn't understand the market, doesn't know how to enter it, enters it the wrong way. If we can come across them and find them, like a commercial guy isn't interested in it because it's a legal unit, but I can get that thing through FHA financing at 3.5% if I know how to get it through the thing. And so a lot of times the trick to MLS is finding the deals because someone entered in wrong, advertised it wrong, picked the wrong thing. A bad deal on MLS might sit there a long time and you have to negotiate it. A good deal on MLS might be gone by Friday. The trick is to be able to get to them quickly and act decisively.
Excellent. So bring me a step forward from here on this deal and the story.
So we went to the first property. It was probably the worst property in the portfolio. Again, good planning by the person that was showing it. There was 30 groups there. It was a lot. Every commercial broker we knew, big players, everyone was there kind of looking. We're like, oh wow, like there's a lot of people here. But the property did not show well. It was on a hill. It was a wet basement. There were some problems. Then we went across the street to the next property and we noticed like we lost half of the group walking across the street. And then we had to go to the next location. And by the time we got to the next location, we were down to like 5 groups. By the end of the day, it was just us and one other person. And we were talking to the other person. They were like, I don't know why I'm still here. And so we did that. But in the middle of it, like the first property was probably the worst. The second property was probably the second worst. By the time we got to the 4th or 5th property, we actually changed towns. We went from Fitchburg to Leominster, which isn't far away, but it's a very different town. And we were walking this 4 unit, and I was like, hey, Matt, how much do you think we could sell this 4 unit for? He was like, I think we could sell this thing for $500,000 because we sold the one down the road for $500,000. I was like, the whole portfolio is advertised for 1.7, and this one building is worth $500,000. And that's when we started kind of realizing this isn't a cash flow play. The way that they showed it turned off people. This isn't something you're going to buy and hold. The value in this thing is really breaking it up into the sub pieces. And so when we got back to the office, we started going through them and started saying, well, cash flow sucks. It's only a 6 cap in a market where cap should be 8-9%. But if we start saying, how much do you think we could sell this 2 unit for? How much do you think we can sell this 4 unit for? How much do you think you can sell this 3 unit for? It added up to over $2.5 million. And so it was on the market for 1.6. We offered them like 1.5. We negotiated somewhere in the middle. We didn't really know how we were going to close it or anything else. But we were like, there's money here. We don't really know how we're going to get it. But we kind of identified the opportunity wasn't really in the way the package was being pitched. The opportunity was breaking it up and looking at it as individual pieces.
Yeah, so it's like a basic, like it was an old like Benjamin Graham sort of value investor play. Right? It's like you recognize that how anybody else looked at this thing, it didn't make sense. But if you could look at it in a way where, hey, this thing is offered, like we can buy this at like a discount to book value and create, and capitalize on some market inefficiency in the back end. So what were you thinking about? Like you got this thing, who encouraged who, even though you didn't know how you were to close it? Like, how did the decision come to like, yeah, we can do this?
I mean, I guess I don't really know. I mean, I think a lot of it was I had a good relationship with a local lender, so we called the local lender, explained the process to them. They're like, oh, yeah, we would lend on that. So we had 80% financing lined up. We started talking to people on our network about it, and there was a lot of interest in it. And so we're basically like, okay, so we're buying it for 1.6. We need to raise $400,000-$500,000 with reserves and everything. We can bring 150 ourselves. And then we started kind of getting some soft commitments. And the biggest thing was really the bank. We put it under contract. I mean, we were agents, so we knew how to kind of run the thing. And we were like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put it under contract. We're going to put $10,000 at risk, not a whole lot. We're going to get the appraisals, and then we're going to go from there. And it appraised at $2.3 million because we met the appraiser, explained the plan, told them we wanted it done by comps, not cash. Keep it private. Don't explain to the seller. Don't give it to a listing agent. And as soon as we got the appraisal in hand, where we're buying it for 1.5, and I have an appraisal in hand at 2.3, now we felt very confident saying, this isn't just us. This is a third-party bank appraiser that has identified this value. And that gave us the confidence to move forward and essentially say, hey, we might have been making a mistake. Now we got someone else making the same mistake. So at least we can, find confidence in that. And that kind of gave us the confidence to push it to the next level.
Now, is this the first time you ever raised capital before, or what?
Yeah, I mean, this would probably be the first time I ever partnered with somebody on a deal. And it was scary, but I convinced myself. I had done business partnerships before, where I did little side hustles, or a photo booth company, or a Fulfilled by Amazon company. And what would end up happening is me and the other partner or partners would get in some sort of a conflict about who's doing what work, and inevitably something that wasn't worth anything would blow up. And so I was very cognizant about that on this, but I felt confident in it, in this fact that I was planning to be out of all the properties in 24 months. So I was like, there's only so much that could go wrong with this in that short period of time, as long as I can keep control.
So what was your process for actually raising the $400,000 to $500,000 in capital you needed to take this deal down?
So I asked people. The first phone call I made was actually to the real estate attorney that I was developing a good relationship with. I knew he wanted to get into real estate. I knew he was, he had an investor mindset, didn't really have time to do it himself. And so the talk track was, I called him up and said, hey, we got this thing under contract. We have the financials. We're working on the appraisals. John Dark's going to finance it for us. Do you know anybody that would be interested in partnering with us? And part of it was kind of a little bit of a bait, because I wanted to present it to him as, can you help us? And then he went through it all, asked a lot of questions, and was like, why don't I just do this? And I was like, that's a great idea. And so we need $500,000. She was like, I'll come to the table with 250 of it. And I was like, oh, thank God. And so that was kind of right out of the gate was the big win, where it was the first person I went to asking for help in terms of where can I get this money, saw the opportunity and said, I'll do it. And so then I went to two other people that I knew that were trying to buy houses, and they didn't have quite enough capital to buy a 3 or a 4 family on their own, but they wanted to get involved. We have good rapport. And I was like, hey, do you want to do this with us? And we got two people in for $50,000 each. And so he brought 250, 50, we brought about 150, and that was how we kind of got it all together.
How did you structure the partnership arrangement? Was it were you all members of the LLC, pro rata share of the capital commitments, or tell me about that?
Yeah, it was pretty basic. I mean, the attorney had a lot of opinions. He was putting the most money in the deal. And so it was pro rata based off of capital put in. We gave up. Now, if I was doing it, knew what I knew now, and had the experience I have now, we keep more equity. But that one was just hey, you put 150 in, you get this percentage. We got commission on the buy, we got commissions on the sale, we got all the other stuff. So we were earning our money or earning our bonuses through commissions, which was great for us because we were just kind of starting off the real estate firm. But the equity was very straightforward. And even now, a lot of times our operating agreements, our equity splits are very basic compared to, I feel like a lot of people make them complicated with waterfalls or exhibits, or year 1 we're going to do 6%, year 2 we're going to do 7%, year 3 we're going to do 8%. Our operating agreements we keep very, very basic, very, very slimmed down. If I can't explain them in less than 30 seconds, I probably am making this harder than it should be. So normally we do the same thing where equity in is your pro rata, but maybe the managers will take a 30% profit sharing or 50% profit sharing over and above projected returns. But we try to keep our operating agreements as simple as possible, because it can get complicated quickly. And if someone doesn't understand the numbers, we found that they just opt out of the deal. If they don't get the math, they're not in.
Yeah, I agree. There's the old saying that a confused mind says no. So going forward on this, if you were kind of like equal members in this, did everybody have to sign in the debt that you brought to this deal, or how did the debt actually work? Was this like a standard commercial investment loan from a community bank? Tell me about that.
No, so we learned something new. So we learned something new where we said, hey, if you own less than 20% of the equity and you don't really have management rights, you don't need to sign the loan. So the only people that needed to sign was myself and then the real estate attorney. So we were the only ones that signed the loan. We took on the personal guarantees. The other guys had a minority share, less than 10% or 10-ish% of the whole thing. So the bank was like, yeah, we don't need them. And so again, that was kind of like a lesson learned with how the bank looks at the underwriting, how the bank establishes risk and guarantees. And so like from there on out, we would structure our deals in a way that would allow us to minimize the amount of people that were offering your personal guarantees.
All right, so we were talking about the debt stack and also the split of membership interest in terms of did that trigger personal guarantees? You said that it was less than, if you were less than 20%, you didn't have to sign the debt. Is that correct?
Yeah, we kind of found out through underwriting that if you don't have management interest and if you're not planning to play a role in the management of the assets, you own less than 20% of the equity, you're not required to sign the personal guarantee. So only us and the real estate attorney need to sign, and so that kind of made it a little bit easier for the people that were involved.
Excellent. So getting into the financing a little bit, like what was the was this a slam dunk with the bank, or did you guys kind of have to like sweat and fight and do all that stuff like we have to sometimes when we're dealing with lenders?
No, this one was an easy one. So I mean, so I guess one of the benefits I kind of had is with the finance background, I'm normally pretty good at talking to banks. Pretty well can talk can talk the same language, can give them essentially everything they're asking for and then some. Also, I tend to underwrite my deals when I hand them to the bank a little bit more conservative in the way I know the bank is going to run the numbers. And so when the appraisal came back, we were all systems go, right? So like we're buying it for 1.52, and then the appraisal came in at 2.3 million, and the bank was like, all right, ready to close as soon as you are. And then we just had to get the capital together.
Absolutely. So you brought this thing to the closing table. Then what happened?
Then it became real. So we went from a bit, a small time landlord to more than essentially doubling the amount of units we own. One of the things we negotiated though was we negotiated to have the current property manager to stay on, and so they agreed to stay on for a year. And so we essentially went through and started saying like, hey, we want to put in rent increases. We want to start, any vacant units do not fill, because in our head we were trying to get these things ready for FHA, VA buyers. And so we put in rent increases. Anytime we got a vacant unit, that would be the property we're going to focus on selling. And so we kind of like pieced through it, and then it went really well. The first couple sold for higher than we were projecting, and so that again gave us the confidence to keep kind of pushing through. An interesting thing happened in the process though, is the broker reached back out to us and said, hey, the seller's looking to sell another portfolio. Would you be interested in buying it? We were like, oh crap. And so we were like, no. and he was like, oh, okay. So he threw that one up on MLS and that one sold. And then we're working our way through the project. He's like, okay, the owner is going to sell off the last portfolio. Do you want it? And at that point, we were almost done with the projects. We were like, yeah, let's take that last portfolio too. So we ended up kind of parlaying this into a larger portfolio at the end. We ended up kind of rolling the capital forward. But I mean, it worked out pretty well where the bank was projecting a $2.3 million appraisal. We ended up selling them all for like $2.6 million after paying all the commissions. So it was $300,000 higher than what the appraisals were. And then that included, 5% commission, which was kind of paid out on both sides as we were transacting business. So it was an early success that kind of gave us the confidence to keep going and kind of fed into what it was. It also gave us a great line with the property management company, because after we bought the next portfolio, the owner actually passed away. And the brother reached out saying we were going to shut down the property management company. Well, we've been using the property manager now for like 2 years. And so instead of them shutting it down, we actually said, we'll just take all your employees. And so we essentially got a property management company that was managing all of our own units for over 2 years, and it didn't cost us anything. And that's kind of allowed us to grow into the next phase. It wasn't planned. Same thing with this portfolio. We went to see it. I wasn't planning to buy it. But a lot of the success that people see, or a lot of the progress people see when they kind of look at the organization, it's really like just happen chance, where it's like something changes, something bad happens, something tragic is going on, and we find a way to make the best of it. And that has kind of changed the strategy and the portfolio going forward.
That is absolutely just mind-blowing. That's how you got into the property management vertical, was through that.
Yeah. It was like, the management company that was managing about 100 over units at the time was like, hey, you got 30 days to place your business. And we're like, how about we just take the business? He was like, yes, please take them all. Yeah, you can have the clients. I don't give a shit. Take it all.
All right. So I know we don't have time to get to the construction company thing there, but is that how you got a construction company as well?
Pretty much. I mean, COVID hit. We couldn't find anyone to do freaking anything. And so, we had a contractor that was managing a project. I sat down to the math and said, we're covering this guy's salary. He wasn't happy with his job. They had some changes going on. So we were like, why don't we just bring him on? We'll get insurance, get everything else. And then it kind of grew off of that, where, we're paying the guy essentially what we're paying the company for the guy. And we were having a heck of a time finding people to do anything, because it was like in the middle of COVID 2022.
So $500,000 raise. I mean, you probably learned a lot through this, but obviously you've gone on to do much bigger things and much bigger raises in the future. We're going to be wrapping up the recorded version of this show and then go and do live Q&A afterwards. But I kind of want to go into that in terms of how your systems have changed now. What's your methodology for raising capital? What's your system for that? And just give me some flavor on that can give some actionable things to our audience.
So what we do now is, one of the big components of all of our businesses is we host 8 or 9 free meetups every single month. We bring in guest speakers, we bring in other brokers. They're free. They're open to the public. People go to them, and that tends to be our network. That's how we grow our network. That's how we grow our brand and everything else. And then we use the agent business to help. A lot of times we get people that want passive real estate investing. They go and look at properties. They realize even if they hire a property manager, it's not passive. So what ends up happening is a lot of our capital is raised off of failed purchases. We have a client that wants to buy a 10 unit in Worcester. They realize really quickly, I don't want to buy a 10 unit in Worcester. I just want exposure to real estate. And that becomes an investor for the larger deals when they come up. Or a lot of times we'll help someone house hack a 3 or a 4 family. It'll go really well, especially in the current market. You have $200,000 of equity in 3 years, and then their parents want to invest in real estate. A lot of the raise has been kind of happen chance, where we did our first big raise. We didn't really know where the money was coming from, and it very quickly came from failed clients that we weren't able to get them to buy something, or parents and family of clients that we were able to buy something. And so since then, we just continue to expand that network. And the more people we can get to buy properties, the more people we can get to have success, the more people we can get into the funnel, the easier it is for us to raise money. Of course, we have 5 or 10 guys, that we call when we need to do big things, need to push around $500,000 or something like that. But for the rest of the raises, we just open it up to the network, and the money kind of comes from essentially random places that are scattered within our network.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, no, there's definitely powerful things that happen with the meetups and just establishing that thought leadership platform and being a go-to person, a subject matter expert. I guess for those people that don't have that, and let's say they have to raise their first $300,000 to $500,000, whether it's through friends and family or professional contacts and that sort of thing. What's your advice to them?
Learn how to partner, right? Learn how to work with other people. If your strength is finding the deal or raising the money or operations, find someone that does something else. The biggest thing that I kind of preach, and the biggest thing I believe in is you're only as strong as your team. Real estate's a team sport. If you try to do this on your own, you're going to have teams out there competing against you, and it's going to be really hard. So kind of figure out what your strength is. Find other people that balance the strength. If you're really good at finding deals and you suck at raising capital, that's fine. Find someone that's really good at raising capital. Go to meetups, find mentors, find things like that. Andrew was doing a big raise, ran into a little bit of problem. We were able to step in and help because we had mentorship. We were involved in the deal, these types of things. And so the more people you get to know, the easier this becomes, and just realize that it doesn't always need to fall on you. Ask for help, bring in other people. A piece of a good deal is better than 100% of no deal. And the faster you can kind of adjust to that and realize that you don't have to do this on your own, the easier it becomes, right? You might come from a family with a lot of money. It's easy to raise capital. That's awesome. But you could partner with someone that's really good at finding deals, and now you have a really good network to kind of bring everything through. But to think that you have to do everything on your own, I would challenge and say you're probably either working too hard or you're probably leaving something on the table. Because I don't know what your experience is in the industry, but very rarely are people successful on their own. There's always either a group behind them or a team behind them or partners behind them, because that's essentially how this game gets easier.
That is money advice, Jonathan. Well, we got to wrap up with the recording here. So if you're listening to this on Podcast Land, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, and you want to get in on the live Q&A, exclusive live Q&A with absolute beasts like Jonathan Bombaci, Andrew Freed, Zach Gray, all Mass boys, Gino Barbaro, Matt Faircloth, Ashley Kerr, Paula Nichols. You got to get in on our exclusive Facebook group called the Go Big Live Real Estate Investors Group. So search for it. Even if you don't have a Facebook profile, create a dummy profile. And we actually release these episodes weeks in advance and also are able to interact directly with these guests so they can answer your questions if you're looking to take your real estate portfolio to the moon. So that being said, Jonathan, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.